There it
Here we
is.
go. Here we go. We are live.
Felt it. I felt it. I gave it the good
Music
the
is
good
a little
magic.
too loud. We haven't done the usual fade out yet, but the music is a little bit too loud this week.
Maybe that's why you're seeing maybe that's why you're seeing the circles in there.
How's it going, Dan? What's up?
I can still hear the music.
I hit the wrong button again. I still don't have it. There we go. Fade
Like,
out. Nice
we're
fade out.
professionals here, and you're not acting like it right now.
I try. I'm a poor audio engineer. What can I say?
Oh, it's all right. You made it work. You made it work.
So we got a special guest today.
Yes, sir.
And we'll bring him on right now because I'm tired today, Dan. I'm tired. So let me click add to stage, and we'll bring on Chris Piccoli. It better be Piccoli, right? Piccoli?
It can be either Piccoli or Piccoli. We say it either way.
Yeah, all right. We're going with Piccoli on this show.
All right, that's the Italian word. Piccoli is the Italian word.
Piccoli. All right.
Yeah, two C's is a CH sound in Italian.
We'll go Piccoli. I like Piccoli. It's like
Piccoli.
I don't know. It's like a cannoli. That's nothing like a cannoli, but I love cannolis. What am I talking about? So Chris is also an agent with a different brokerage, a competing agent, if you will, but there's not really any competition in real estate, at least in our area, this market. So we wanted to bring Chris on and kind of talk about his perspective on the market and all that good stuff. So, Chris, you want to introduce yourself and tell us everything about you? How long you been in the business?
Awesome. Well, I am. I shouldn't say I'm new to real estate. I started buying houses. I bought my first house when I was 18 years old. And I fixed it up with the help of parents and friends and sold it and bought another house and fixed it up and sold it and bought another house. So I've always kind of been in real estate. My parents were not thrilled when I bought a house at 18 years old. They're like, what the hell are you doing? But I just started doing it and I've had fun with it along the way. Always, fixing it up and buying it and selling it and buying something a little bit nicer. And so that transitioned into, I spent almost 20 years in retail. So I worked for Home Depot. I started in like the tool rental center in Manchester and worked my way up. So I started from part-time tool rental and I wound up running 10 Home Depots, 1,700 employees, $350 million a year. So I had, the weight of the world. Yeah, they're just a small, 1,700 people below me. Got out of the corporate world as fast as I could. COVID hit, and I can tell you, retail's not fun. Retail's really not fun during COVID. So got out, took my chips off the table, and said, I'm going to go back to what I like doing and what's fun, and that's real estate. So I started with Joey, got my license primarily just to flip. I was going to get my license to save myself a little bit on the back end and started flipping houses. Bought my first one as a foreclosure in Enfield and realized that I liked the interaction with people. Like, as you work in retail, you learn to love people, you learn to hate people, right? So like I had some of the worst interactions. You ever want to piss off a lady? Tell her that she has to do dishes in her bathtub for 6 weeks because her cabinets are delayed, right? Like I lived that life. You want to, that's some of the most pissed off people I've ever had. I could tell you stories forever, but I mean, I had to take a phone call where our delivery truck ran over and killed somebody's dog. Like I was like out of that world and said, all right, I'm going to do my own thing. So I started, got my license with just doing some flips. My mom and my dad are super supportive, handy. And my dad is like, we fight back and forth a little bit. Like, well, he'll be on like a flip job with me and start to yell at me and tell me what to do. And I'm like, you work for me now. So like, it's an interesting dynamic. My mom is a fantastic painter. She doesn't mind diving into the dirty, nasty, like she'll go clean out a flip that's disgusting. And then she'll put on the gloves and go to town, and then she'll be painting, and then we'll rip out down the wall she just painted, and then she'll get pissed at us because she has to paint the next wall we put back up. But, just started getting into it and having fun. and really fell in love with the real estate side. I thought that I wanted to do just flips. And I said, after doing it for a little while, I said, hey, let me try this like Zillow thing, and started getting some leads and getting some clients. And I'm, obviously being in retail, I'm super competitive. And I always want to like do more than I did last year, right? Everybody on the screen here, everyone wants to do better than they did last year. So I started competing with myself. I was like, all right, so if the first year I did, 3.5 million of volume, this year I want to do 7. And then I want to do 14. And it's like, I know some of those are like aggressive goals, but it's like, I want to just keep going and keep growing. And it's like, you guys know, I've only been doing this. This is my 3rd year. So, I did the 3.5 the first year. I did 6.5 the second year. And it was like, nice. I want to just keep going. Like this year, I want to do more than I did last year. I want to have fun. I want to grow the sphere of influence, like, we all do. And, I was telling my wife the other day, I got the first call, like cold call out of the blue that said, hey, my wife works with somebody you sold a condo to, and we hate our realtor, and we're out of our 6-month agreement next week, and we want you. And I'm like, okay, I had somebody completely out of the blue. And it's like, as of right now, I've been doing the Zillow game, and like, so it's starting to get fun. I've sold houses to cousins. I had one last month. They just closed in Suffield. One of my cousins moved to Israel. She married a doctor, and they decided that Israel was where they wanted to live. And then the war broke out, and they have a 9-year-old, and there are bombs going off everywhere. And they're like, we're going to come back. And literally they had only been to Suffield twice in their life, to my mom's house for a Christmas party. And they're like, this is it. It's a Hallmark movie. We want to be in Suffield. So I moved them from Israel to Suffield. We closed on the last possible day of the year and got them in. But it's, it's just been a fun experience of, mix of friends, family, and just, I started off where you start off and where you end up are 2 completely different areas a lot of times, right?
Yeah, I started very similar to the way you started. I got my license. It's been 17 or 18 years now. And I bought a 2-family, and I love the fact that somebody was paying almost all of my mortgage at that point. And I wanted the same thing for my friends and family. I'm the oldest of 4, so all my siblings were coming up behind me. I think 2 of my friends had bought, 2 of my circle of friends, and I really wanted to expose them to the same thing. Get in a 2-family, work your way up, build some equity, have somebody paying off your mortgage, and eventually trade to a single family house. And I loved it. That's why I just got it just for a couple people, and ended up really falling in love with the process of helping people, and that's what got me started in it too. So
that's cool
story. Yeah, I think I probably rented from your department, the tool rental in Manchester, with that first house. I had a sewer backup, and I had to root it out, and I'm pretty sure that's where I rented the rooting scheme.
Depending on the year, I'm trying to think what time I was there, and probably like 2000-ish is I think when I started.
Yeah, it was probably like 2003, maybe early 2004. It was not a fun job. Did it, and all that little do-it-yourself stuff. Anything you can do yourself really helps out when you're young and you're hungry and you can't afford to pay anybody else. Everything in a house is pretty simple to do if you're really willing to learn.
Well, honestly, like you said, if you got a helpful mother who likes to paint, because Lord knows I hate to, and I'll tell you, painting is expensive. Just buying the paint alone is expensive.
Oh yeah,
someone to do it for you, that tedious edging and all that stuff, or trimming rather. Whew,
she does it all, but we've learned over time the hard way. Like she'll paint something and then we'll rip it down, and then she gets pissed, and then we'll do it again. And we've learned several times. Like even in this last flip I just did, like she painted the kitchen I think 3 times because we changed it, we did something different.
Yeah.
So your latest flip, the flip you brought up, was that you talking about the Windsor Locks on Seymour?
Yes.
That one? That is I love that house. I wish I had a buyer for that house. I love it.
Thank you.
Pictures look phenomenal. I love your drone. I love the snowy drone photography. That's great. My brother's house is actually in one of those pictures. You can see my brother's backyard.
Yes. My wife was at a hockey party, and they had mentioned that they saw that their house was in the drone photo.
Yeah.
Coach Dave.
who do you use for photography? Snap Estate or who do you
No,
use?
Prime Property Images. They're out of Enfield. They're newer. It's a mother, and she started doing it. And her son is the photographer, but she's like the pit bull. And she like literally pulled in the driveway one day and was like, "Hey, I have to meet you." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And we just started talking, and they're reasonable. They're doing a lot of cool things. I was on the phone with her today, and she said they just bought a second drone that is able to fly in like the front door. So like they'll take the drone from outside and fly in and do a drone video of the entire inside of the house.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm actually shocked in Windsor Locks you didn't get landed.
I got
landed. That was my thought. Dan's got a drone, and he said he's been landed a couple other side of town, close to the airport.
Yeah, I was on Elm Street, closer to the airport for sure. But I mean, 2.5 miles away, Windsor Locks isn't that big. Shouldn't make.
Not even that. It's probably like 1.5 miles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
That was. They were up there.
He had some trouble with it. I think like he was like, it won't fly. I'm like, FAA is probably shutting you down.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. There's a message. It could be if he's using a DJI Maverick or whatever. You actually have to answer the app and say like where you are, because they're going to know, obviously, right? And then they're going to they're going to tell you not to fly above a certain distance. Generally it's tree line, and I was like, okay, sure. And no, sure as heck I got landed, and I'm like, well, that sucks. And I'm like trying to show the kids, like my nephews and everything. I got a drone, and we're whipping it around the backyard and having fun with it, and then just landed on its own. It's like, sorry kids, can't play anymore.
I'm like 3 miles off the runway, so it's like I wanted to buy a drone, but I knew I could never fly it at my own house. So
yeah.
The garage in that house. Tell us about that garage. It looks really cool. The big garage.
Huge garage, all block construction, all steel I-beam, like 12-inch steel I-beam. It's really well constructed. You could fit 4, 5, 6 cars in there. The family that owned it, the gentleman was a car enthusiast and had a whole bunch of parts in there, and there were engine blocks and all kinds of stuff in there. But it's set up where you could actually put a 2-post lift in there. It's got like 14-foot ceilings on the downstairs. It's like a car enthusiast, wood enthusiast's like dream for a workshop.
That's cool. And now that you say that, I might have a buyer for it. So
yeah, if you could put a lift in there, I mean,
yeah.
I was planning on putting my boat in there. If I was going to have my boat in there, if I wasn't going to sell the house this winter, I was going to put my boat in there for the winter because it's huge. My boat's like 30 foot on the trailer. It would fit in there no problem.
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
Where do you take it out? Kangaman or?
Nope. We have a family camp on Sebago in Maine. So my wife's grandfather built a place in 1955 right on the water. And it's been passed down through the family. So I go up there every April. I put it in the water. Get the camp opened up, and I take it out, and it sits in the water on my mooring until like October now.
Wow.
It's a cool spot.
Yeah. Is it like slips or anything up there? Or is it just kind of like?
No, just looking around. I looked at before knew we were going to end up with the place. I looked around at a bunch of different lake houses, and like anybody in real estate, right? Like I wish I bought early. Like I looked at houses that were, $200,000-300,000 that are $1 million now. And it's like if I would have just bought one lake house, I would have been all set. But
it's crazy. I feel like even right now, like real estate, to me, being in the industry this long and seeing the run up that we've had, like the last 5-6 years, it almost seems unaffordable. It seems like it's too high. But I know that 5 years from now, I'm going to look back and think like, man, if I had just bought in 2024, and everyone's going to be saying that, I'm going to be feeling the same thing then that I'm feeling now, but I'm still going to be saying the same thing. So it's always a good time to make a move. Always a good time to make a move in real estate.
Absolutely.
So what are you seeing? What are you seeing with the market right now with the winter? I was just talking to Dan the other day, and we were talking how some of like the lead activity, the buyer activity is a little bit low. Listings are still super low, and I was telling him that like I said, I think this is my 18th winter, and that when January 1st comes around, if there's no snow on the ground, spring market starts to tick up right then. But as soon as we get that first snow and it's cold, everyone just kind of hibernates in. And for the most part, you got to wait for it to thaw, and so inventory still starts to come on the market. You seeing the same thing on your end, or you seeing different?
No, I would say I'm seeing the same thing. Even on my own listing, like I thought I would have sold by now, and it hasn't. And obviously, I have my 9-year-old out there shoveling the driveway every time it snows and the stairs and trying to get it ready. I mean, I know that's obviously a deterrent to people wanting to move. Nobody wants to move in that stuff, right? But I think at least in my short couple of years in the market, it seems like the days to sell are going up. It's taking a little bit longer than normal. Like, even like looking around Windsor Locks, Dan and I were talking this week, and it's like, the average house, there's 8 or 10 houses in the market in town, and the average days on the market is probably 45 to 50.
Yeah. Your house is you're tied with one other person, I think, at 15, and there's a coming soon. I think Bannock is listing it, and other than that, it's 40 days or higher. And now I'm like, I was texting you, going, I'm shocked. Windsor Locks, like, I would be. Last year, 2 years ago, I was pumped to get Windsor Locks because it was a no-brainer. I could have threw that thing up with no pictures, no nothing, and I would have gotten offers. And it's wild. Yep. So it's just shocking right now to see Windsor Locks the way it is. But again, it's we could blame whatever weather and all that stuff, but it plays a role. It
does. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this 18 years, and it is the same thing every single time. If it is cold and there's ice, now we didn't get that much snow. What was it, like 4 inches? But then it dropped to 15 for 10 days, and it didn't melt. Normally, you get a couple of 38-degree days that's melted, and we see a little bit of activity in the market. But we'll see. It's melting now.
So I got a buyer that wants to check out this house, actually down in New Milford, and we're trying to schedule a showing. And it has been, it's harder to schedule a showing with this owner right now than it is like having tenants. I kid you not. So like, I'm texting this guy. He's like, "Hey, how does Saturday work?" He's like, "I don't know. The weather is not looking that good. I don't think she's gonna want to get out." I'm like, "All right, how about Sunday?" He goes, "Oh, Sunday's definitely out." I'm like, "Dude, I mean, New Milford's far from me, so we got to lock this down and get it." The seller herself doesn't want to leave in the off chance that there's bad weather. I mean, what does that say? But
nothing worse than showing houses with tenants. I mean, I've looked at a few or tried. I mean, even the ones I've sold, it's like I had one I sold in Suffield here on South Grand, and it's like they had 50 showings in the first 2 weeks. And after the first 20, every tenant just started, I set them up in showing time, and they just started declining every showing. It didn't matter what time, what date, what anything.
Yep.
And you're like, that's
I get it in some ways. They signed the lease with the owner to not be bothered. I can totally understand it. But then again, it's one of those things. I had one years ago, Mike, you can remember this. And this is right when COVID, it had been around, so it had been prominent for a while, but we were showing houses. And then, like, literally, I was showing the house to a potential buyer, and he opened the door. He goes, "Ha!" I was like, "Oh, all right. Cool, man. I'll see ya." Like, that's the route you wanted to go. And thank God, he got out, but
that's crazy.
The Portland house, Mike, if you remember that one, it was like, come
on. Oh, yeah. I was trying to think. Like it was jogging the memory a little bit there.
Yeah. I mean, it was years ago. It was like 2020, but
I've showed houses with tenants before that they didn't leave for the showing. They're right there, and half of them don't leave, which is fine. They don't want to be bothered enough to leave, and they don't really have much of incentive to sell the house. But this is a house that I knew this was a good tenant. I knew he liked living there. He was not going. He was going to stay. He had an 18-month lease, and all he did was talk bad about the house because he didn't want the house to sell.
Yeah,
I know this guy was a good tenant. The owner told me this is a good tenant. He's not going to give you any problem, and it was like night and day from what he expected to what transpired. No, tenants are always tough.
You can try to give them the best forewarning you can, and kind of like full disclosure on everything. Like, and try to promise them the world. Like, listen, I'm not going to sell you a house that someone's going to kick you right out. But then when you sell the house, do whatever they want. But.
I was gonna say they all kind of know. I mean, at the end of the day, whenever anybody buys something, the rents are going up. You know, every multi I show, they're like, "All right, I understand what they're at now, but what's the market?" Like that's all any investor wants to know. And it's like, they're either going to go up on it or they're going to find somebody that's going to pay market. You know?
Yeah. Are you still messing around a lot with the multis, or are you just sticking to flips right now? What's your
I've gotten several multi clients, and most of it is in Western Mass. I've been pretty busy the last few weeks showing in Westfield. I've shown a bunch in Westfield. We've made a couple offers on Westfield. The biggest problem is just, when things come on, they're just so prices are inflated, and when they come on the market, they go crazy. I went to an open house in Westfield in a 4-family 2 weekends ago. And there had to have been 150 to 200 people that showed up. And it was elbow room only. And it was just, my clients were overwhelmed. Like they didn't even if they were slightly interested, they're like, I'm not getting into a bidding war with 150 people. We're like, got it. Understand.
Yeah. That's a huge, not a red flag, but that's a huge thing for buyers. They're like, well, I'm not going to beat the 150 people out. And you're just like, well, hold on.
There's a lot of tire kickers, you know what I mean? Out of 150, there might be 10 that are
50 of them are neighbors that have no intentions on buying whatsoever, who always wanted to be in that house because they see the people or the work they've done. Especially, this flipping houses. Half the showings are just the neighbors wanting to get in and see what you did to the house to get ideas. So they want to do it to their house for down the road. It's
family members. I was telling my mom the other day. I mean, we did 5 or 6. I think it's our 6th flip. And every single house I've had the family come back and tell me the story and tell me and it's that part of it is satisfying to me. Where somebody comes back, I had even this one in Windsor Locks. I've had the niece that sold me the house came for one of my open houses. Her 2 brothers came. One of them came 9 hours away from Maine to see the house.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And every house I've done, I've had the family come in and be like, I grew up in this house. I remember this. This is so nice. And the things when you can make a difference and bring it back to, nicer than what they remember it or as nice as they remember it. It makes a difference.
I think I would do the same exact thing. I think got to be honest. If my parents ever decide to sell and then, they flip, the buyers flipped it or something like that, I think I want to check it out. And, hey, this is where I slept in this room for, 15 years or whatever. But
I only had it blow up in my face once. The first one I did in Enfield, the guy came back. He's actually the guy that put in my pool. And he grew up in the house, and he came and he was just telling everybody that was there, we got water in the basement this time. And we got that. He was just destroying the house for everybody. He stayed the entire open house from beginning to end and just killed it for everybody that walked in the door.
I own a 2-family on Southfield Street in Windsor Locks, and I was painting the steps. I had the house repainted. I didn't have the guys repaint the porch, and I was just repainting the front steps. And 2 people during the time that it took to repaint 2 steps that had previously lived there at some point came up and talked about it. And I gave them a tour of the first floor unit that was vacant, and it was really cool to hear stories. And I met a whole bunch of two people that I didn't know that lived there, and 2 different people that lived upstairs that I actually do know that lived there at that time, and I had no clue they ever lived there. So it was cool, real cool.
That is cool. You just make those little connections, you learn things.
Absolutely, it makes Windsor Locks even smaller than it already is. It's such a tight knit group of people, anyways. So
I learned a fun fact: the people that lived in that house lived there for almost since it was new. And then they built the house next door. There's a little ranch next door, and the parents moved out and gave the house to the daughter. So the daughter never left. She lived her entire life there from when she was born until she went to a nursing home.
Oh my word.
Wow, that's cool.
That's a long time in a house.
And then you find all kinds of cool stuff, I found, and I was able to give back to the family. I found wedding videos, stuff that people, they didn't realize they left behind,
Yeah.
At least when you have a connection, you can give it. There's somebody to give it back to versus put it in a dumpster.
Yeah. There was one in Windsor Locks that I showed one of my clients over the summer, and you just know it was the same kind of thing where the people who had lived there a very long time. Wasn't able to clean anything out. You could just tell it was an elderly that had moved on. And we went upstairs, and there was like records, of 50s Christmas records, Dean Martin, all that stuff. I'm like, you got to be kidding! I was taking pictures of it because there was newspapers from the 50s. Oh, my light just went. The battery. No. Anyways, pictures from or newspapers from the 50s, and it had. I'm talking like an old school refrigerator from the 50s. Now it wasn't operating, it was just there, but I was like, man, this is so cool to come in and see some of these things. I was taking pictures of everything. It was like, man, this is awesome.
It's right, because I feel like I see that quite a bit. Like at least a couple times a year you see houses like that.
I've never seen like a full records like mint and box type thing of Dean Martin and all that. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then like newspapers from the 50s. It was just cool.
Yeah. Is that the Dickerman house? Dickerman then?
What? Yeah.
Dickerman? Yeah, I showed that house too. That was
one.
Yeah, it was real cool.
I couldn't remember. That was like, was it Dickerman or what? Yeah, it's Dickerman.
Sounded familiar. That was a cool house.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, Chris. I think I cut you off there like twice.
That's all right. I was saying we had a lot of that in this house we cleaned out. There was like an old school piano. There was like matchbooks, and it actually had a rotary phone in the kitchen. So you walked in, it had the rotary phone. So my kids are 9 and 11, and I said, open my wallet. I go, here's $100. Here's my cell phone. If you can figure out how to call me on this, I'll pay you $100. And they both looked at each other and like, yeah, we don't know what to do.
Oh no.
Yeah. Hard to believe how much times have changed.
Yeah.
My dad got one in his basement and it works.
Actually,
really? No, he got rid of phone. He finally cut the cord and just went with his cell phone. But back when he had his house number, the number that I grew up with, that phone still worked. So I should get that, put it up in my house.
I love seeing that in the homes, just like a lot of history and whatnot. It's cool.
Yeah. You got any? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What are you guys seeing in the market?
Just lack of inventory. Plenty of buyers want to buy, but inventory is low. And like I said, Christmas week is always one of the slowest weeks. It's always terrible. And right after that, right after New Year's, we had the snow and we had the freeze, and pretty dead from that.
Yeah, I mean it is too. I'm seeing what I actually like. The number of buyers that I have hasn't really gone down in the past couple of years. In fact, they've only been increasing. But what I'm happy about is that they're not settling. They're not just, oh, this one's good enough, let's make an offer. Like they're actually being a little picky, and that's good. It's a good thing because you want them obviously to be happy. So it actually would drive the market in a little different way. I think that people aren't gonna bid 40, 50,000 over asking, have this big appraisal gap. Now it still exists, but at least what I'm saying is my buyers that I'm dealing with isn't they're being a little bit more selective, which is great. But we boast our perfect home finder and whatnot, so we're doing a lot of off market deals, and that's kind of the niche I've been trying to get into for the past few years, and that makes it a lot easier and better for the buyer too. So, but still no inventory on the MLS.
That is true.
Yeah. How's Mass? What's the Mass market? We're both licensed in Mass. I don't do a lot in Massachusetts at all. You said you've been up there a lot lately. Is it similar situation up there?
Similar situation. I think the Mass market's actually a little bit better than the Connecticut market right now. Seems to be the same kind of, how much over asking is it? The 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 over asking. A lot of my clients in Mass are multifamilies, which have been super competitive. There was another one in Westfield we looked at that had all kinds of environmental issues. It had a Mass DEP file for leaking oil into the water, and it had monitoring wells. It had 5 monitoring wells, and it's still like you would think in any market that would be something people would run from, and it still went highest and best. My clients made an offer of full price, and it went over asking on a DEP file house that has monitoring wells, and somebody paid over asking on it.
Failed Title V. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So I would say the mass market, especially in the multis, that's primarily what I do in mass, has been very, very strong.
Where are you seeing that? Mostly Westfield, or is you seeing any like East Long Meadow or anything like that?
Everywhere but Springfield. Springfield's kind of like a market that is nobody wants to get into, but like Westfield, Chicopee are both very strong. West Springfield is very strong. It's kind of the outlying areas of Springfield that are still very, very strong.
Yeah. Springfield had a little pop like 6 or 7 years ago for like 2 years, and then it's right back. No one really wants to touch it right now.
Well, I think with that casino going in, right? That was a huge draw for a lot lot of people.
I don't remember. Maybe I never correlated the two. I never really thought about it.
That was an assumption, but that was an evidence-less assumption right there.
I think that made the immediate area around the casino a little bit better. But if you go outside of the casino, there's still a lot of areas where you get out of your car and you're like, lock, make sure.
Yeah. Right. Well,
we got Dave Sharon. Charlie's not with us right now, Dave. So no worry about Charlie popping in here. Charlie's my 5-year-old son, Chris.
All right. I was getting a little worried. I was like, maybe I'm a shitty guest. I don't know.
No, he likes to pop in. I had one other question about Springfield or about Massachusetts. I don't remember.
The area around like UMass is super hot. Last year I sold a 2-family that went for 100,000 over asking. Like the UMass and the campus areas are still very, very hot, and nothing lasts.
Really?
Yeah.
My wife's actually in Amherst right now at a hospital. Like that's intriguing. We should talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, that area is super hot.
Yeah. Okay. Huh. We'll have to see about other college campuses and kind of get
around you, like the student housing around UConn. I'm on a whole bunch of investors lists, and every time one pops up, I'll get looking for offers, and then a week later, you'll see cash closed email from the same person. Those are really hot.
Wow.
So funny story. I grew up on the UConn campus. I grew up on North Eagleville Road.
Oh, nice.
And I lived there for 40 years. My parents lived there for 40 years, and it became so crazy that every time somebody moved out, investors bought it, and they moved in 1 million college kids. And my father, I mentioned he's retired and he helps me. He's a retired sheriff. So he doesn't like put up with shit, right? So he comes out at 3:00 in the morning with the gun strapped on the hip, and he's like, everybody out of here. And like they had
off my lawn.
Yeah. And like when we were younger, when you partied, you knew there was a party because there were 100 cars down the street. Now it's all Ubers, so you don't know there's a party. Like it took 17 state troopers to shut down a party, and they were on my parents' lawn for like 4 hours waiting for enough Ubers to get them out of there. There were like 300 kids in a house.
Holy.
But yeah, that is a very investor, but they're actually doing a lot of things with legislation trying to change that. I know you guys know Derek Donnelly. We were talking. I had a client that was actually looking in Windsor Locks. He is a pilot, and he wanted to create housing for pilots that got stuck in Connecticut. So if a pilot got stuck in Windsor Locks, he had a group of like 20 friends who were all pilots, and he wanted to make like a little kind of rooming house and give them like a little access code. And if you get stuck, you can at least go this place. Because he said that he has a lot of friends that get stuck 10, 20 days a month, and they could leave their clothes in the closet and not have to stay in a hotel. And Derek was like, nope, can't do it. He goes, because of UConn, there's actually state legislation now that makes it that it's illegal. It basically becomes like a rooming house. And we actually had a signed deal on a condo in the Elms, and they had to back out because Derek was like, you can't do it.
Wow.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
It must be like a grandfathered in, must be like no, because I know there was a rooming house in Manchester that was on the MLS a couple of years back, and I actually talked to the agent, and it'd been running for years. It's nothing that I wanted to operate myself. You're almost like you're running one of those strip mall hotels, out in Manchester, which I wasn't interested in, but it was very profitable for her and her client. I think she was partnered with them.
I know of running one right now doing it.
Yeah, Derek was like, so then they backed out because it was a condo, and then they were like, okay, we're open to anything. And Derek's like, no, you can't do it anywhere. So they wound up not buying anything from me, but we had a signed deal on a condo, and they backed out because it's not an approved use.
Way to go, UConn. This wouldn't happen at Notre Dame. I just want to know that.
Well, that's when he told me, I go, hey, my parents are in, I grew up in UConn. I was like, I know that's not true. He goes, no, it's actually true because of UConn. And I'm like, okay, all right, makes sense. I lived it.
All right, not mad anymore. I get it.
I get it. I lived it.
Yeah.
Oh, my Charlie, I can actually hear him outside right now. We are for the 7 listeners we have right now. I'm actually in Florida, and I am in my camper right now, and my family is outside the door. So I am going to take off here, guys. Chris, thanks a lot. Oh,
seriously.
One other question. Do you have any other projects down the road after the Windsor Locks flip?
I've got a couple lined up. I have one in Enfield that I'm looking at, and I have another one in Windsor Locks. But similar to like kind of what we do, it's all networking, right? It's all about who you know, and it's all everything I have been finding lately has been off market. And I do have a couple lined up, ready to roll. I'm just trying to sell 5 Seymour. So if anybody has a buyer, take a look.
Yeah,
I got a text right after we hang up here because I'm going to try to get somebody in there. So
perfect.
Thanks for coming on, and we'll get you back on after this sells, and you can talk about your next one.
Yeah, seriously.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.